do this? You come in a little high?
Yeah.
Landing like that in the streets, also on the uncool side.
No, that was already like that when I got here.
I lived here.
There was about 15 or 16 days worth of photography at the Embry House, and some of it was exterior, some of it was interior, and we needed a place that we had a lot of control. So first of all, there's the aesthetic, and then there's the control. We just knew that we would have much better control in a backlot situation than we would in a residential neighborhood, especially after 3 or 4 nights of night work. Residential neighborhoods get a little finicky about that kind of activity. So it was just better control-wise. So then we found that street and decided to build the house in sort of a cul-de-sac environment. And we used it for an interior and exterior house. It worked for both.
You would not have believed it. I got this close to being smacked by a train. If it wasn't for this guy, I mean, he saved my life. Hancock, this is my wife, Mary.
It's a gorgeous house. A little too gorgeous. In fact, I think we had to ugly it up or pretty it down, whatever the proper term is. And it's still pretty nice. End of a cul-de-sac. It's nice.
Hancock! Oh, son of a gun, I knew it. I had a feeling. I said to Mary that he heard me and he's ready for a change. I did. You can ask her.
I'm a big believer in location filming. I think it's really great. I think it creates a kind of constraint and at the same time kind of the truthfulness of circumstance sort of gets into the DNA of the movie. But on this occasion, there was something so magical about the house that I think we were lucky to sort of, weirdly lucky to be there. I don't know why. It's strange to feel that way about being on a lot, but I did.
Well, it was great. Everybody responded really well to it, and it really was comfortable in the end. I think between the architecture, which had a wonderful flow to it, you could really feel yourself flowing into one room, easily accessing another and flowing right around, and you could just visualize a wonderful cocktail party in the house or just hanging out. Kids and dogs chasing each other around the staircase. It was really beautiful.
You, buddy, you're an asshole, don't you think?
Be careful.
I'm not a very smart person, and I thought that it was a real house. And in fact, called my wife and said, I found our dream house. The bad news is that it's on the Universal lot. So security would be great, but I don't think we're going to be able to get a clicker for the arm,
Yeah, I actually moved into that house after we left Universal. I'm staying there. It's awkward. There's no running water, but it's lovely, and people come over. They bring food because there's no gas. It's a great house. People would come shooting, and my wife actually came, and I had to get her off the set before she started stealing stuff. I mean, fantastic.
The character of Mary was particularly informative for the decorating of the house because she's been a goddess for 5,000 years and she's hiding in plain sight. She is a regular old housewife with a beautiful home, but we had backstory to work with it. In other words, we had character ideas to work with when we were picking out the things for the house. The symbolism that went into the Embry house is definitely something that Pete Berg came up with. One of the things that I talked about with the director, Peter Berg, was the idea that Mary had very famous and well-known friends over the eras. And here's an example of one of them. This is Joan of Arc. Even all the way to the present, she was friends with Janis Joplin, she was friends with Marie Curie, and then also with a woman who wrote Frankenstein, Mary Shelley. So we have pictures of all these pals around the house. Here's another picture where Mary is shown doing her work with children in South America. This phase of her life is very much about good works, and over the course of the story, she shifts back into her tougher persona. This bookshelf represents a bunch of our healing ideas for Mary again, and we took some research from a Japanese group of books that were all about healing, ancient books, and then we had some craftsmen make all these books up. So they are representing all kinds of different cultures. We took the idea further and went into all different cultures and had the idea that she's collected healing tomes from all of the different groups. So here is a magic lantern. This is an ancient, of course, lantern from the ancient Roman times. Right next to part of to continue our botanicals theme, the beautiful herbs in these beautiful glass jars that show how meticulous our character Mary is with her specific plants that she has that she can just use in her recipes or her healing elixirs. She can weigh them on her little scale. She's got mortars to grind things in, and plus just interspersed, there's just little touches of ancient things. This is something that I actually acquired years ago when I went and shot a movie down in Haiti, and it's an ancient, it's a colonial piece, and mixed in with, of course, the fact that she's got her child who's busy making her artwork. So we've got our nice eclectic mix. Another thing that we did with the artwork was going back to the botanical theme. As a goddess, she's a healer. This concept was that she was a healing goddess. And if you look through, you can find Isis, you find Demeter, you find all these different goddesses that do this. And they all associate with plants and healing. This is an example of one of the oldest herbals in history that we were able to get reproduction pages from. In the earliest Greek days, there was a man who did these beautiful drawings of the healing plants. And this thing has been handed down and handed down and handed down. And actually, it's, of course, the one we were able to make copies of was a copy itself. But the concept here is that she's been a healer for 5,000 to 7,000 years, and that's the concept here. So these are little mementos that she has in her house. It was really fun. We put a lot of thought into it, which who knows if people will notice, but it's the kind of thing that we love to build layer by layer when we build character and sets. And then you started the destruction process, which is something that's gone through many of our sets. You have a continuity that gets followed, and it gets destroyed, and then it gets rebuilt and gets destroyed again, and then we're going to do the reverse, and we're going to destroy the other part. It was complicated.
Go.
Once we decided that one of the rooms that ended up with the most destruction was Ray's office.
That's me trying to change the world.
Unfortunately, not doing real well.
That became his domain with his advertising career.
That's something you might want to bring up on a first date, Mary. I don't like to travel. I'm allergic to cats. I'm immortal. Okay? Those are like some of the things you might want to give a little heads up on.
You didn't bring him into this house, Ray. The universe did. Just to clear that up.
Ray's like collateral damage, and that's part of the theme of the film.
Well, the Malibu Bluff was a beautiful location to put the trailer. It actually turned out not to be that terribly hard, although there's a limited amount of equipment that you can get up there. And once you plan it and you take all the department heads out there and you know what you can get up there and what you can't, then everybody plans accordingly.
It was a great isolated spot, which was the whole idea. He was up there just like the gods on a high spot, and he could oversee everything, be completely alone and not be bothered by anyone unless he chose to.
Come on, guys. Come on in.
Hancock's trailer was this wonderful amalgam. For example, one of the chapters that we discussed in our lengthy discussion about Hancock's character, Peter Berg and I, was the idea that he had certain heroes.
Things that appeal to him and he's not really sure why. Certain, people that are almost, that we think of as being as close to godlike as we've seen, that appeal to him, whether it's musicians or politicians or philosophers.
He's just attracted to certain people that he thinks are really cool. For example, Abraham Lincoln. But he didn't really want me to do Abraham Lincoln like a poster with a frame on the wall. It would be a $5 bill with Lincoln's picture on it, taped to the refrigerator. So it had to be subtle.
Just like the idea that he gets huge bulk items of food, and he eats in there. I like the idea of losing this. I love the Jiffy Pop everywhere.
What is this?
And he had a lot of musical heroes like Miles Davis and certain jazz figures. And one of the characteristics of many photographs of Miles Davis is he has big sunglasses on. And of course that was, oh yeah, Hancock was wearing sunglasses through the movie. One thing would lead to another, and we started to get really a little crazy up there. I had some pretty wonderful set dressers and artists working on the place, and they started to really flow into it. We emptied out a whole bunch of whiskey bottles and had whiskey smell around, and then we found a book of what's called outsider art, which tends to be art by kind of eccentric people. Somebody's writing really small, endlessly creating a design, or figuring out, oh, we need to be more inspired by these outsider arts and people whose minds are going into strange alleys and can't quite get out of these strange ruts and things like that. Those themes, we kind of wander around junk shops and find things. It's fun. We love that kind of detail. Part of what we do is to create a surround for the actor, the detail, and that's how we approach everything as much as we can. It was pretty great.